So SF minimalism. Then this is a concept of minimalism I got into a few years ago when I was introduced to um, a travel bag actually, and because it was the idea was you just when you go travel overseas or you travel to another city, only take carry on. That was the minimalism concept, and so I bought this really fancy, cool travel bag that cost in New Zealand like about $450 or something crazy. And it's just a carry-on travel bag that fits in the overhead locker of the airplane. And it's the idea that you only take three pairs of undies or a pair of pants, whatever it is. It's a minimalism um, concept. And so when I came to solution focused approach, I was introduced to this idea of minimalism and solution focused as well, and how we shave things off. Like if you watch those videos at the start of Insu and Steve, you'll see kind of this compliments idea, and over the years, compliments have kind of gone out of the sessions in some ways, in many ways. The same thing with this break. They used to have a break at the end of the session, go out of the room or take a moment to just look at the desk and write down some notes about some homework that you'd give. So another minimalism idea was giving some homework, and that's kind of gone away as well. So the closing of an SF session is more about um, just just finishing, leaving the autonomy with the client. So this idea of shaving things down was introduced with that. So over the years, um, this minimalism. I want to understand. This is my best hopes. I want to understand how this could be useful for everybody. Um, what are some common questions that we have, and maybe we could group those questions into categories. And so, why would we want to minimalize? Well, for me, this is the idea of the conversation today, is so I can teach this in a better way, make it really simple to just pass on the concepts of how we make this, how we make solution focused more simple, and how what's the other is in terms of passing it on, but also making it easy for me as well, and so that the clients can learn what I'm doing in that sense as well. So, can I'm going to throw it in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing. Can I just ask you in the chat, what are some common questions that you use? What are the most common questions that you would use in a solution focused session? Right in the chat. What are your favorite questions? What do we got? Yeah. Yes. What's been better? What's working well? How would you know today's conversation is useful? These are Steve's question that we watched. What else? Absolutely. I've had experienced counselors that I've worked with in workshops, 30, 40 years of counseling. And the what else question is revolutionary to them. They're like, wow, what a good question. You get so much more when you ask what else 10 times. What's better? Good. Who else would notice? Those are questions there. What did you notice about yourself when things were going well? Exception sort of things. Yeah. What did you do to contribute to that? Good. Agency. The how to. How did you do that? How did you do that? Good. Annette. How did you manage to do this? Good questions. All right. So I'm curious now. And this is the thing when I'm watching some of these live sessions that I've been watching as well, is to have a little tick box of how many times they asked this question. I was watching a session with Elliot Connie actually a couple of weeks ago, and he must have asked, what difference would that make 30 times. It was almost like the only question he asked, kind of thing, in a sense. What difference would that make was a really big question that he asked over and over and over again. Yes, you have to wait for the UK session, I think, for that one, Annette. But I got they're from the UK, and yeah, I had them on there, and I think I've got permission to share them. So as well, there's 4 videos. There is that one that was the couple that's on YouTube that when they're arguing and she asked the miracle question. That one it's called Irreconcilable Differences. It is on YouTube, that one. All right, let's share again. Go back to my screen. So over the years, people have come up with these ideas to simplify the ECF approach. So this is one you might have heard of, the museum or the house illustration. You walk in the main door, you're asking best hopes. Then you do some resource talk, and then there's a miracle question. There might be scaling questions, and then there's the ending of the session. And within that, there's all these questions that I've written down in this picture that I developed a few years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, that I did this when I was learning this because I needed something to hold on to. And that was helpful. And then the Elliot Connie, the Solution Focused Universe, they've come up with the diamond, and there's a book come out last year on the Solution Focused Diamond. And this was kind of, again, an attempt to simplify things around finding your best hopes, describing those best hopes, whether it's in the past, present, or future, and then closing the session. So the diamond is, for me, a very simple way of approaching it, but it still doesn't give you what kind of questions we're asking in that description. This is another version of the diamond that I just put together based on a little bit more information, presuppositions, change or transformation in terms of that, developing that best hopes, that preferred future into a description, whether you saw that in the past and you describe that in full detail, whether it's in the present, what you're currently doing and the resources that you currently are using, or else it's the tomorrow question. Suppose tomorrow your best hopes become a reality. What is it that you're going to start to notice? And what else, what else, what else? And then closing, again, that autonomy of the best hopes. So what I then threw out there, and this is the favorite questions, which we've already done, jump to slide. What are the most common questions? What questions do you think are helpful, and what else? Of course. So that's kind of where we're going with this one. So these are the questions that I've come up with that I thought summarize all the questions we mostly ask. There are difference questions. What difference would that make? There's the first person noticing questions. What would you notice? And then you're asking, what would others notice? That we could also take that responsibility. How did you do that? You know, what did you contribute to that change? How did you notice that, and what difference did that make? Again, asking those sort of questions. There's a legacy questions that are part of the, and if we're just grouping these questions, where did you learn to be that kind of person? Who taught you that? You know, who in your past have you noticed doing that the best or something? Is these legacy questions. Then there's the versioning questions. When that version of you, that best self, or the presence of the best hopes, when you're most confident, when that shows up, what do you notice? What do other people notice? What difference does it make? And those questions kind of repeat themselves over and again. And then scaling questions, same sort of thing. It's like a miracle question in a sense too, on a scale of 1 to 10, where you're most motivated or confident or dealing with your grief. Where are you? And what makes it, and if they say a 3 or 4, what makes it a 3 or 4 and not just a 2? How did you get to that? How did you do that? And then, of course, what would you notice when you're a 5? Those sort of questions in terms of scaling, getting to the real nuts and bolts of just simplifying these questions. And then with all these questions, you can ask what else, what else, what else, what else. So I put this into a chart, and I'm going to put this into the chat in a second. that looks like this. Grab that file, open it up. What would be added to it? How would we simplify that? What would be the minimalism ideas around that file there as well? So if you can discuss that for a bit, I'll just go for about 10 minutes. Someone want to share what they got out of their conversations? Absolutely. Scaling is here to stay. Because scaling is interesting too, because that fits, if you think of that diamond of the past, present, future, where the presence of that, you can scale any of those as well. You could scale in the past, you could scale in the present, and you could scale in the future. So on a scale of 1 to 10, where you were more motivated back in the past, what were you? Good. So for the recording, I'll just read out your comment, Joe. As a newbie, it's great to see experienced clinicians using these types of questions and that it's okay to refer to them until it becomes a comfortable language. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing for me. I mean, if there was three questions that I asked the most, it's those first three. What difference would that make? What would you notice? And what would others notice? And then I might throw a scale. But then the scale has those questions in it as well. So what would you notice when um, you're 1 point higher? What would others notice? And what difference would that make? Three questions that repeat over and over. And that's the thing too. I was reading something, um, some research, and they're saying that the solution focus, when people have been using solution focus for a number of years, it can get stale because you feel like you're a imposter just repeating questions over and over and over and doing the same thing. And it's like, oh no. So I have felt that sometimes. Okay, oh, I've had 3 clients today or 4 clients, and I've asked the same questions of each person. But the thing is, I suppose I've got to realize is that every conversation is different because their answers are different. Um, so it's a different conversation. And I can go home inspired, saying, wow, I just had the most awesome sessions because these people have gone from here to here, and this is inspiring me. What else? This is the program that I was writing in terms of developing solution focus. So again, simplifying this as much as I can to 6 lessons, little 20-minute snippets that I've been doing in a school for a staff meeting. So the first thing to learn the solution focused approach, the most simple thing I thought is the most important thing is the mindset. Recognizing what is the difference between solution questions and problem questions. And so I've got a list of 20 questions on that I have on cards, or we have it on a list. And it's just simply looking at those questions and going, is this a solution question or is it a problem question focused? And then framing positive questions. So how can we ask questions rather than, and I use the example of how are you? How are you is a really good question because it could be it's not necessarily problem focused, but it's not really solution focused either, because I'm thinking to myself that most of the time if I was to ask, and I don't very often ask how are you, the answer I get is a negative answer. I'm busy, I'm tired, I'm a little bit run down, it's not a very good day. It's just that negative. It's really easy to go to a negative mindset when you ask how are you. I don't know if that's anyone else's experience. I think one of the illustrations of this I laugh about, because when supermarket operators, they have to ask how are you, or they used to, and the most common answer I think they got from how are you is, oh, really busy, just kind of getting through this supermarket, I've got to get home and do this and do that, and I'm busy, so busy. And then I noticed a couple of years ago that when I went to the supermarket, the checkout operator asked me, busy day? It's almost like they knew I was going to answer busy if they asked that, because that's the most common answer. So they anticipate a negative answer in a sense. So getting that framing, like what is the best part of your day? What are you looking forward to? Those kind of positive questions. Understanding that's a really good way of promoting solution or outcome rather than problem. So phase two is scaling. And I think this is for me, and someone said in the chat, scaling is here to stay. For me, scaling is um, the easiest way to teach someone about the solution focused approach and the nuance of saying, understanding it from a solution focused perspective. It's looking at potential, it's keeping things positive, it's amplifying resources rather than negatives and deficit. So practicing scaling is a really important part of teaching the solution focused approach. So when we ask, so on a scale of 1 to 10, where you are achieving your goals is whatever goal it was, is 10, and number 1 and is the negative, is the opposite. Where are you? And they might say a 3 out of 10. So I then ask, why are you giving it a 3 and not just a 2? What's got you to a 3? And my emphasis is on how you got there, not why you aren't a 10, why you aren't a 4. I want to know what's got you to a 3. I remember a boy in it's a grief and loss situation. And when I asked that question, where you're managing your grief and loss or not, and 10 is you're really managing it, and 1 is you're not. And he said negative 400. And with my solution focused hat on, I said, so what makes it a negative 400 and not negative 1,000? To which he answered, well, I'm here, aren't I? So suddenly he's on the scale, and in my mind, he's not negative 400, but I'm not going to dispute that. I'm not going to, because it's just a number. And I said, what else? Because that's the most common question I want to ask. What else? He said, well, sometimes I talk to my friends about it. And what else? I have some good memories of my granddad. Kind of that was the conversation. And then I could ask after that conversation, so suppose today is really helpful and you walk out that door and you're not a negative 400, but you're a negative 399. What would you notice? And again, that's a key nuance in the solution focused approach that I think is new. It's what would you notice when you're higher, not how would you get higher. It's you're visualizing and imagining the presence of I'm feeling better today. And so when you are better, very presuppositional, when you are better, what would you notice? Not when you are better, what would have you done to get there? That would be too much task orientated. So the nuance with scaling is that, and it's a real miracle. And what would other people notice? What difference would that make? Where did you learn to be that kind of person? There's those kind of legacy questions there as well. So I'm very, very keen on scaling in terms of teaching the model, because you can see the pennies drop when you say use that kind of language with teachers, when I've been doing it mostly there, even counselors who have been doing it a while, and they go, yes, I can see how I could use that. It's not a assessment, it's a scaling tool to amplify change. So presuppositions, again, is a really important thing to share and teach for the basics of, or minimalizing solution-focused approach. So presuppositions are those phrases that presuppose change, phrases that, or questions we ask that assume something good. So I wouldn't ask, if this was helpful today, what would you start to notice? I would ask something like, I'd say, what would you notice when this is helpful today? Not an if. I'd take that if out. I want to be as much presuppositional as I can. So when I say, what is the best thing about today? I'm not saying, have you noticed anything good today? I'm really presupposing this. There is something good. What are you looking forward to? Is a very presuppositional question. What will you notice when things get better? Not if this was somehow better. It's presuppositional. So real focus on outcomes is the presuppositions. So jumping ahead, because we are nearly running out of time. It goes fast. Best hopes question. This again, for me, it's like I cannot imagine ever going into a meeting again, whether it's a parent-teacher meeting or it's a counselling session or it's a staff meeting, without asking a best hopes question. What will make this meeting really helpful today? What would you notice if you're talking to someone tomorrow and this was helpful? What would you be talking about? What would you be saying? So it's a best hopes. What is your best hopes? And I know for myself, when I've ever gone into a counselling situation, it was a session and I get stuck, or I think I get to the end of it and I go, oh, I just felt like that was a waste of time. I was really struggling. That's because I haven't had a clear best hopes. I can tell you a story where recently I was in a counselling situation with a couple, and right near the end of this session, I can laugh about it now, but I was feeling there right at the end of the session, the couple said, I would like to have an open relationship. I really want to have a threesome in bed, and my husband doesn't want that. And I was like, oh, I can't deal with this. Kind of in my head, didn't say that, but I had to go, hang on, this is the end of the session. What was the beginning of the session? The best hopes was that we will remain together. And we had that topic didn't come up in the whole conversation up till that right at the end. And so I just said, so let's just park that. We haven't got too much time. Let's focus on this idea that you want to be together. And you've given me all these reasons why and what you like about the person. That got me out of a big hole. Just focusing on best hopes. Let's bring it back to the best hopes and make sure I've got a best hopes. So number 5 is working on what works. This is again, I've used this more and more. I've got this poster in my class, in my not classroom, in my office. And if it's not broken, don't fix it. If it's working, if something is working, do more of it. If it's not working, do something different. And I can ask clients now. I've started using this, and you can do this with kids and that sort of stuff, wherever you are. I'm like, okay, what is working? And did you see if you watch that video of Steve DeShazer, he said, so you do sometimes get 72 hours or 71 hours of not arguing, if you were at the opening bit. So you can do this. You keep notes around, and it's really focus on what is working. It's what if don't fix that, because if it's working, do more of it. So that sort of stuff. And if it's not working, we'll do something different. So which one of those are we looking at today? I can ask in my counseling situation. Sometimes I do that, and then I can go, wow, okay, well, let's make a list of what is working, what's keeping you guys together, and what's keeping you going despite all these difficulties. So asking, and what difference would that make, is a real key part of that. So last thing I'll go is a miracle question. Describing life without the problem versus, this is the nuance of what solution focused like 2.0 would be, more describing life with the preferred future. So you saw into asking, so suppose tonight the problem that brought you here today just went away. What would you notice? So now we're more focused on not the problem going away, but the presence of your best hopes showing up. And I think that's a really cool part of asking that miracle question. So even when you're scaling, it's not 10 is no problems. 10 is I am really motivated. 10 is not no problems. It's I am managing my grief really well, kind of thing. So there's a little, again, a nuance that I want to bring about in terms of doing this, and then follow up sessions, what's better, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to stop there. Has anyone got anything else when you saw the idea of minimalism? What came to your mind? What do you think we should have talked about that we haven't yet? Maybe open for some questions.
Matt, I think the brief people talk about all you need to know in a session is what the last thing they said, and they even reckon that once one of them crumpled up with a really very bad stomach ache, and the other one came in and took over, and the session worked really well.
Right.
Because they just went on what was the last thing said, and you respond to that. So I think they're the minimalists of the minimalists.
Yes.
I was saying in our little group that I happened to be in Berlin when they came and to the European Brief Therapy Conference, and they came and said, look, we think we can make it simpler. You don't need miracle questions or anything. All you got to ask is best hopes. So I'm pretty sure they were the first ones to come up with that. And then someone like Chris Iverson, he is probably the minimalist of the minimalist. Do you think? He kind of...
he is. But he does ask miracle questions. So, but I understand what. But it's they call it a Timaru question now. Yeah.
Well, when they said that, I think they didn't say he wouldn't ask the miracle question, but they're saying that they're looking at ways because the four of them bounce off each other, 3 or 4 of them.
Yes.
I think they're very creative, as you say, because it can be sometimes. If you're working by yourself, you might get into a rut. When you were speaking, I think I asked the same question 6 digits in a row.
Yeah. No, that's good. Good point. I remember. There's a practice task you can do where there's 2 circles. There's the question askers on the outside, and the client is in the inside, and you swap every minute, so you don't know what's gone before. And I heard that it's really frustrating for the counsellor because they don't know what's gone before, but the experience of the client in the middle is really positive. They go, "Oh, that was really helpful," just because it's based on the last thing that was said. So that's
yeah. Okay, thanks, Matt.
That's good.